My kids wanted a pool hall a few years ago. I figured what better way to add some edge than to make it look like Winston's safe room from John Wick. We did a safe door, 2 secret doors, shadow boxes and display cases, a ceiling with crazy tiles it took forever for us to do, a dartboard, obviously a pool table, and a very interesting floor. Now, many years later, what if I told you I had the chance to build this room all over again, this time better? I was working with this client and I'm doing his garage, making a little model, coming up with some cool ideas. And then he came at me and said, hey, you know what? I have a safe room. Do you have any ideas for that? I said, you know what? I do. I showed him this, gave him a tour, and he was sold. So after my client showed me his safe room, I realized I don't have a whole lot of area to work with.
Oh yeah.
So I have to be very intentional on what I was going to use and get straight to the drawing board to get my ideas across to him. As I begin to put the pen to paper and sketch out the ideas, I have a grocery list of items that I want to include into this room. I want a couple chairs in there because obviously I want people to go in and hang out. A really cool chandelier, if not the chandelier. Some shadow boxes so he can display his other items. I need to improve on the floor. I want to do a legitimate safe door, and I got a couple ideas for a really cool record player.
Hey guys, it's Dylan. Just want to let you know that the record player and the safe door were so cool and time consuming that we gave each of them their very own videos. So when you're done with this one, you can go check those guys out. Okay, back to the main event.
When I made my John Wick room, I opted for a sticker floor. It was quick, I had to hurry up and get it done, and it's a major corner that was cut. And you can tell. From here, I can see every piece of dust and I can see every imperfection underneath this floor. It catches the light. There's no shine to it. There's no depth. I am easily 3.5 feet away and I can see pixels. It looks like somebody just hot glued a Polaroid picture of the floor down. So now I have the opportunity to do something better. I'm going to do this next floor out of layers and layers and layers of epoxy. When I'm making the floor, I'll start off with hardy board. I do a black primer starting off with a black base. I have stared at my floor so long that the colors are just burned into my head. So I could just eyeball, mix up my pigments, get the right colors that I needed, and then I knew how the translucency was gonna work over top of that black. Then I just began pouring and pushing and letting the epoxy flow and do what it needs to do. And then to get this veining across it, I use spray glue. Just spray glue and it gives this really great veining. Once I have all my colors and everything out that I like, I wrote a quick program for the CNC to cut out all my shapes and sizes. So basically, I made a big pile of Legos. I need to put those Legos in some kind of order. They're not all going to look correct, so I need to orientate those in different ways. And when I say I mean Dylan. And once he's done with that, I need him to draw me a map. Getting started is always the hardest part because you always second guess yourself. You're not sure if you're gonna put the line in the right spot and you're, is this right? I don't know. And then, okay, but it's not really flowing and you're working with it. You just have to do it. Just jump in and do it. Start drawing, start getting it out. You start feeling a little more at ease. Next thing you know, you've drawn it all wrong.
I can't continue on this. This is not correct. It's not correct. I need to go find a ruler.
You just gotta take that paintbrush, dip it in the paint, and just start slopping paint on the canvas. Don't worry, get it out of your system. And once you have that part done and the fear is gone, it all just comes so much easier.
Beautiful.
Winston's Continental is in the style of Art Deco. The towers that I had to design to fit into this room, I wanted them to go into the corners. So I began designing that in Fusion, wrote a program, put it on the CNC, bada boom, bada bing. Now I'm gluing and nailing. The tops of the columns are pretty bare bone right now. The metal and the flares come later. And speaking of flares, who has 2 thumbs and is excited to open up a box? This guy! This has arrived.
Hey guys, it's me again. Honestly, I have no idea what happened to the audio in this clip, so I'm just gonna give you guys a backstory on this chandelier. We wanted to surprise the homeowner by getting him the real chandelier from the movie. So we found an auction site that was selling the chandelier from the 1930s. Now, those with a keen eye can clearly see that it's unavailable. We broke the news to the homeowner, But we assured him it wasn't a big deal. You know, we already planned on building the chandelier in the first place. It was just kind of a cool idea, but we can still make the chandelier ourselves. But then surprisingly, he said, let me see what I can do about that. A couple hours pass, homeowner calls us back saying, you guys are gonna get that chandelier in a couple of weeks, don't worry. What had happened was the auction house had a chandelier in the back, but it was damaged, you know, it was missing some parts. And rebuilding some missing parts is a lot easier than rebuilding an entire chandelier. All right, you guys got the backstory. Now we're gonna open up the box.
Oh, it's so cool. That's the real one. Oh, that is not light. That is real.
Oh, that's like brass.
Yeah. So onto this, there's another beauty ring, and then it has the reeded glass that comes around and circles under, and then a glass ball on the bottom. Wow, look how old that is. That's the original insulation. So cool, because you can zoom in all you want on your computer and freeze frame the movie, and you never really know, but then once you actually have one, all your questions are answered. It's cool because this is exactly what I was thinking, like how I was gonna build this, and I could actually sleeve these in. Yeah. Oh.
Ew.
That is glass. That is not acrylic, that is real glass. Wow, this is real. This is all so cool. Every joint here is brazed, which is really cool because you don't see much of that anymore. I mean, look, like they weren't really caring. They would bend this around. This is probably stamped out and then brazed. Beautiful. Stamped out, beautiful.
Handmade.
Oh, this is gonna, yeah, all handmade. This is a piece of history. And now it's going into another guy's John Wick room, which he will totally appreciate. So now we're gonna see how well I can make new look like old and authentic. That chandelier. I like the challenge of working with old things and taking something new and matching the patinas and the weathering to try to make it look like it's all one piece. Now, right behind the chandelier is the large shadow box, which is connected to the base cabinets. The base cabinets have to be really square and really sturdy. Basically, the whole room is anchored off of these lower cabinets, and they can't be cattywampus. So my solution to that is make a torsion box. The tops of the towers are bare right now. I'm making an insert that slots into all the tops of the towers. The back's covered with felt because I know my speakers are going to be in there, and the felt's going to allow the sound to still come through. So along with the 1-inch square iron are these knuckles, and you have to do it in a specific order. You have to slide the knuckles on, slide your centerpiece down, slide the other knuckles on, then weld it. If you do that out of step, you'll never be able to get the centerpiece on. If you were to see my work in real life and you were looking for seams and pinholes, you would never find them. Everything looks exactly how I want it to, whether I want it to look like one piece or sheet metal riveted together. It's all Bondo, glazing putty, sandpaper, and primer. Now, when I say I do all the Bondo, really it's Dylan and Ryan, but still. The iron bars on the towers in the movie have these rectangular pieces. They're just rectangles with some trim nailed in around them, which gave me the perfect opportunity to gain some space in this room. I made the top rectangles 1 inch smaller than the rectangles on the bottom, which induces like a forced perspective. Because they're higher and smaller, they feel further away, which then creates this stretched feeling. Along with the small trim around the rectangles on the tops of the columns, there's a bunch of small trim that goes on the doors of these columns. So to keep it all consistent, I had to make a jig. It took me some time to make this jig so everything would come out exact. And once I was able to work out all the bugs and make the holy grail of jigs, it was time for me to show Dylan how to use it. I think it's at this point that I'm saying, hey, be really careful. We only have one of these, so don't break it. But it happens. You fix it, you keep moving. Building requires a lot of attaching things, whether it's screws, nails, glue. My preferred method, super glue and activator. It's instant, it's now, and it is strong. We use it on everything. It's practically holding my whole shop together. Anybody that says it's not permanent has never really glued two items together and then tried to remove it. Just as an example, Dylan set this piece down 4 seconds in the wrong position, which then created a 40-minute fix. We had to peel that top piece off, resurface the cabinet, and then realign everything back to how it should look. Paint them, laser them, drill all the pockets for the hinges, and stain them. Freeze time. I have traced the freeze from what I can see that it is, doing all the research and everything. I've researched this particular design several times. And the best way is to hand sculpt it. You use a CNC, a 3D printer, all of that, it still misses, to me, it misses that human touch. So to get the best repetitive pattern, my solution to this problem is I'm going to take the relief parts, epoxy, sculpt it, take a mold, pop copies. The seam will actually be on this part here. So when this fiberglass piece comes with this fiberglass piece, the seam is actually on the highest point. It's the easiest to sand out when you're making all your parts and pieces together. I don't have to trace every last piece, just the key points that are going to tell me if I'm lined up right or not. So I obviously want the top and bottom and then a straight edge. Any little key factors that are gonna help me out. The biggest loop in something, a couple of these guys. So when I pull it off, you notice that I forgot to do this one. Boom. So now I can key up these parts. What looks like to me is it was a brass stamped piece. So all my edges here will get feathered in. So it'll look like it was a stamped piece. Definitely want to make sure it's not going on like that. Going on like that. You saw what I did there, right? Yeah, I know. Boom. And there it is. It's 3 o'clock in the morning right now. Everybody out there is asleep. My brain waves are... So that, for me, is the best time to sculpt. So I'm excited to see what this crown molding is gonna look like. So here we go. After I sculpt it, like I said, I pop copies, glass, Bondo Prime sand. Dylan had the pleasure of bondoing all the holes, pinholes, glazing, and then sanding. And this is all hand sanded. It's always good when you prime because it's going to either show you how far away you are or how close you are to being done. I saw the ceiling as an opportunity to make the room true, meaning I knew that the room itself wasn't going to be perfectly square because most aren't, but I had an opportunity with this ceiling to make the room appear completely square. The outer perimeter of the ceiling gives me that chance to actually make it square. So I'll make the parts that the frieze is actually going to nest into just a little bit smaller. So I have the wiggle room to then square it up to the inside of the ceiling, which is 100% true. Okay. So I am going to be laying out the floor and it's going to be a reflective, no, it's just going to be the floor, inverse on the floor. Ceiling. I'm laying out the ceiling on the floor. That's what I'm doing. And you know, just kind of push things out of the way. They're in your way. Once I have everything laid out and lined up, pop the rest of my tiles in, cut the corners on the ceiling, And now all I need to do is whip up some wainscoting and wire my back wall. Wainscoting is the same way that I did the door panels, just on a larger scale. I ended up going with Alumicore for the base because that is completely flat, thin, lightweight, and it doesn't encroach on the size of the room. I used drop pieces of MDF to space everything out. Boom, 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 3 walls done. After that, I got to lighting for my cabinets. It's pretty simple, LEDs, solder, go. This is what I love about being my own boss. There isn't an electrical department, carpenters, designers. It's just me and my skeleton crew, which is a core group of people that I can totally rely on. If I gotta frame something up, I'm calling Ryan, we're hopping in the truck, we've got screws and 2x4s and boom, we're framing. If I'm working on something electrical, Nathan's my go-to guy. If I need to come up with a good design, I'm smelling markers and licking paint. Pre-wiring before I install is a definite must, because if I would have done it there, it's just a spaghetti mess. And if it takes an hour in the shop, it's gonna take 2 hours in the field. And wire management, super glue. And finally, we're ready to install. Snap some chalk to find center, cut a hole for our ceiling structure. Thanks, Adam. When you're gluing things overhead, a neat little trick is to make circles. They actually make little suction cups because it's supposed to hold it over your head. And have it fall on my head. Here, pull that.
I was watching it, dude. I was watching. I'm like,
Now I knew going into this, we're gonna have to move the supply and return. So once we started putting up the frame, I marked out the new holes. Typically, you're supposed to have the AC people come, get with the GC, blah, blah, blah. It's so much quicker just to do it yourself. Once the rest of the black frame is up, now it's time for the cool stuff. Back wall and towers go up without a hitch, then I start hanging paper. Cut out the hole for the watch winders, insert the box, then I start painting. Chandelier was a pain to get in. This thing weighs about 35 pounds. I'm on a ladder, one hand, trying to manipulate 5 rods while holding this and threading on every nut to all 5. Thanks to Dylan's movie magic, it only took a couple of seconds. Get the wainscoting up, some more paint, bada boom, bada bing, doing trim work. Then I had to build out the soffit for the frieze to anchor to keep that a true 90. Button up all my electrical behind, a little more base paint. Once I slip those inserts into the top of the towers, you can see how well they cover the speakers. A little base coat, now I can start the frieze. I've been waiting to do this frieze for so long. I knew going into this that it wasn't going to be a true square on each corner. So I left those blank to do in the field and then sculpt all the parts and pieces connecting together. So it truly is seamless. So here I am dry brushing over top of the satin black, a gold. It's a marvelous gold. Marvelous gold. I love doing the gold. The gold dry brush really begins to pop out all the features and everything that I've sculpted that you couldn't see because it was all black. Wash over top of all that really gets in the nooks and crannies of the wallpaper and really gives it a layer of time. Now I knew this floor was not level. I start off with some self-leveling concrete, pour that in, walk away, come back in 3 hours and I'm ready to start laying floor. Now it's time for me to prep. Get everything ready, look over the map, make sure everything is in place according to the map. After I've installed the floor and poured the clear, I can now install the final base molding, do some last minute weathering here and there, throw in a couple little props, and now we're ready to show the clients.